going to take you inside a place where new drugs, household products, and cosmetics are tested to ensure they're safe for you to use. It's also a place cameras are usually shut out from because, we should warn you, it's not a pretty sight. Every year, millions of animals endure discomfort and suffering in the testing, and tens of thousands of them are higher intelligent beings like dogs and monkeys. As this W5 investigation reveals, sometimes the line between abuse and the ethical treatment and care of lab animals isn't always clear. This is a 6-month-old beagle. He's a friendly but timid little guy who loves affection. He's called 4505. His name is a number. He and these other puppies are born to be numbers, bred for experiments in testing facilities for drugs and other chemicals in labs like this one in Montreal. Their lives are brief and with more than their share of misery.
Did you ever make an animal sick?
Every day.
How did you put that together in your mind?
It was hell.
The person who shot this undercover video worked here as a lab technician for 4 months, earning barely $14 an hour. What the lab did not know was that she was also an investigator for an animal rights group, Last Chance for Animals. W5 agreed to conceal her identity. We're calling her Stephanie.
The noise was what got me, mostly. The dogs howling, crying all day long. Up and down the halls you'd go and that's all you would hear. It was just the dogs howling and crying.
The lab is called ITR Laboratories Canada. And while Stephanie worked there, she documented the daily routines of not only beagles, but highly intelligent pigs and macaque monkeys. Most of what went on was completely legal, but it's difficult to watch. To our knowledge, no one has filmed these kinds of procedures inside a Canadian testing lab before. Screaming pigs with blistered backs are swabbed with chemicals. Monkeys are suspended in restraints while being intubated. And dogs are forced to ingest chemicals until they're sick.
This dog has had surgery. There's a catheter implanted, and that catheter will remain in the dog for 9 months.
So they live their entire lives in a cage?
Yes, correct. And you can see the dog is being lifted by the tether.
They're being lifted by the...
Yeah.
And thrown in?
Yeah.
Is that typical?
With some of the technicians, yes.
The video shows dogs repeatedly thrown into cages, and their treatment often seems to violate industry guidelines, which state that only the minimal amount of force necessary should be employed.
Don't move. That's why you just...
It takes a lot to put yourself in the line of ugly.
This is their lives. This is what they're going to experience from beginning to end. And if I can expose that and share a bit of what they're going through, then I feel like I'm making a difference.
You sleep better that way.
I don't sleep very well at all.
How many dogs were there?
Hundreds.
Hundreds?
Hundreds.
What about monkeys, primates?
Probably close to 200, if not more. These eyes are looking back at you and... Sorry.
It's hard.
You learn very quickly not to make eye contact, because that's what got me.
What you're about to see is among the most disturbing video. This technician is training dogs to wear inhalation masks. They're used to pump chemicals into their lungs. Over more than 15 minutes, the tech can be seen hitting the dogs 16 times.
The dog doesn't look to be misbehaving, really.
No, but he's moving, and that's apparently all it takes for this technician to strike him.
Over the same period, The tech also pulls the dog's ears at least 10 times.
I believe that the techs throwing and hitting the animals would be found to be illegal under existing Canadian laws.
Adam Wilson hired Stephanie for the undercover sting. As the lead investigator for the LA-based Last Chance for Animals, he believed Canadian labs were overdue for public scrutiny.
Obviously, for anybody who hasn't seen this kind of thing before, what you watch is disturbing. But is it abusive?
Well, there are certain cases that we documented that I think rise to the level of abuse.
Wilson has submitted the video, which cross-references industry standards and laws, to the Quebec government. The allegations include ITR labs mistreated animals, housed them in subpar conditions, and prevented them from socializing, exercising, and seeking comfort. Company records that Stephanie obtained suggest ITR's clients include drug companies testing potential new products, but also companies that make cosmetics and health supplements.
What kinds of tests put you over the edge?
I think it was most likely the dermal studies that were done on pigs. Those were very difficult to watch.
They were testing pig skin for how it reacted to things.
Yeah.
Pigs feel a lot.
Yep. They respond a lot. They're very vocal.
This pig's back is obviously red and blistered, the apparent result of substances being applied to it. Industry guidelines suggest these procedures should be conducted in a separate room, away from the other pigs, so they can't hear the cries of pain and distress. Clearly, that does not happen here.
Holding pigs down and lying across their backs and squeezing their mouths shut simply to get the pigs to quiet down, again, is abusive behavior.
How much do you think Canadians know about this kind of thing?
I don't think they're aware that it even happens.
To get a better idea of what Canadians think about scientific testing on animals, W5 hired a staffing company to assemble a cross-section of Canadians from diverse backgrounds, jobs, and political stripes. Some of them are pet owners, some are not. What we're going to show you today is some undercover video that we've obtained from an animal rights organization from inside a Canadian lab. And then I'd like to have a conversation with you afterwards. So you're among the first Canadian outsiders to be shown something like that. How many of you were surprised by what you've just seen? What were you thinking as you watched that?
I just love dogs, and just to see that, it breaks my heart. Like, it makes me want to kill these people. Like, I'm sorry, but they deserve to go through the same or even worse.
That was bad. The abuse. I'd like to see that guy try that on a Rottweiler or a pit bull.
When you heard about animal testing of pharmaceuticals, of household products, what kind of animals did you assume were being tested?
Rats,
Mice, rabbits.
Nobody considered dogs?
No.
Yeah.
I thought they banned primate experimentation.
What if new drugs at certain levels kill humans? Is it still acceptable to test them on animals?
If they're looking for a cancer cure, then I can probably say yes. Maybe there should be some necessary sacrifice by animals if they're treated properly. But cosmetics and household products,
Yeah.
I can test it on myself.
I don't approve. First of all, I don't approve that, but if it's necessary, maybe find a better way.
Are you prepared to deny the march of science to possibly cure a disease to protect these animals?
We are the most diverse and adaptive species on the planet. If we can create all we have created up to this point, then scientists can find a way.
If they were told that January 1st, 2019, you stop unless you've got safer ways of doing it, I suspect they'd come up with some breakthroughs.
I love animals and I love science, but something that I also really love is that I love people.
Michael Brunt is a dog lover, but he's also a master lab technician at the University of Guelph. B-Dog is the second lab dog that he's adopted. Brunt sits on several national and international boards that encourage the ethical treatment of animals in science. And he says if you think we can do without animal testing, you'd be wrong.
There are some things that just cannot be answered without a living system. And that is where the animals play a crucial role in being able to answer those questions.
How often is there a relationship between animal system and human system?
We share such very significant genetics and very similar systems in ourselves, like organ systems and things along those lines. And the medications that are utilized, that are developed using animal research, are not just used with people, but also with your pets as well.
Brunt says most Canadians tolerate some animal suffering. A 2013 study by the Canadian Council on Animal Care suggests that 60% of Canadians think it's at least somewhat acceptable for animals to potentially suffer for safety testing of medicine.
What does that tell you?
It tells me that people understand the importance of the medical testing and the use of animals in science. They can understand that it is important.
Brunt is dead set against animal abuse, but he says if humane practices are followed, animal testing means better lives for humans, and he's seen it in action.
Well, these are all animals that are part of our family.
His wife lived her entire life with cystic fibrosis, and though she died 2 years ago, he says medical advances gave her a better life.
Whenever I think of Allison and our life over the years, I think of every year, every couple of years, every 6 months, all of these different intervals where new treatments, new therapies were being released, were being integrated into our lives, increasing the quality of our life.
Experimentation on animals is morally justified.
The ethical use of animals in science, I believe, is morally justified, yes.
Revealing the brief, unseen lives of lab animals.
It's a joke.
And the system that claims to care.
These individuals are very dedicated.
When W5 continues.
Every year, 3.5 million animals are legally used as scientific test subjects. Most of them are mice, fish, or birds. But every year, 12,000 dogs and 5,000 monkeys are used in more advanced procedures that are mostly hidden from the public. The laws that protect your pets don't always apply here. These animals are legally allowed to suffer. This undercover video shows what it looks like inside a test lab in Montreal. The video shows animals that have been chemically burned, force-fed pharmaceuticals, and even subject to corporal punishment. So, who's responsible for ensuring that the animals in these labs are treated humanely? Well, each province has its own animal welfare laws, but more often than not, animals for science are exempt from them. So the job falls to an organization called the Canadian Council on Animal Care. It's a non-profit, staffed mostly by volunteers. It has no power to lay charges, impose fines, or shut a lab down. In fact, Canada is the only GA country that does not use government inspectors to enforce the rules.
So we're just on the right down here.
Louise Desjardins is executive director of the Canadian Council on Animal Care, which oversees animal testing labs. She asked to privately screen some of the video, so W5 showed her some excerpts, including video of the technician who repeatedly struck these two dogs. You've had the chance to screen some of the video that we've been provided. What's your reaction to what you've seen?
Well, it's the first time I've seen the video. I must say, when the CCAC receives a public inquiry such as this one, we take it very seriously. We've already been in contact with the institution in question to arrange a special visit and obtain all the facts.
Was there anything that you saw in that video that you think is worthy of investigation?
I do not want to preempt or preclude the work of the panel. I really think that they need the time to do that work.
The council is not a government agency, but it gets about 2/3 of its funding from the federal government. The rest comes from fees the companies pay, between $4,000 and $20,000. That means the oversight agency relies on the money from the very institutions it monitors.
If they lose their certification, the consequences are dire and far-reaching because they could lose their funding.
That's certainly true for an academic institution. Not necessarily true for the drug industry that doesn't require government funding for a lot of the research that it does. Is that true?
In Canada, the private sector is not obligated to be certified by the CCAC unless they do business with government.
So of the 201 files that you had in 2015-16, I believe, in what percentage did you put the company on probation?
It's in our annual report. There were three institutions that went into probation.
Was anybody's certificate removed from them?
Oh, I don't know.
Desjardins insists that her council holds institutions to the highest ethical standards. Every institution it certifies has an on-site animal care committee, a volunteer group of animal experts, including veterinarians, who are responsible for ensuring the animals are treated ethically.
These individuals are very dedicated. They volunteered their time to do this because they believe in what they do, and they believed in the standards of the CCAC and ensuring that those high standards are met.
There's absolutely no teeth in the CCAC system.
Troy Seidel doesn't buy it. He used to do assessments for the CCAC. Now he's the Director of Research and Toxicology for Humane Society International.
CCAC guidelines are, by and large, voluntary. You can have, in theory, the withdrawal of research funding if you're an academic institution, if you're not complying with the CCAC. But if you ask the CCAC when, in its 50-year history, that has ever happened.
Has anybody in the history of the CCAC had their certification revoked?
I've only been there 2.5 years, so I don't have that information.
Not during your tenure, though?
No.
W5 asked the CCAC to check its records to see if any institutions had ever been decertified. They didn't respond to our question. We showed Seidel the undercover video. He says it's upsetting, but not surprising.
By and large, those are typical regulatory guideline studies that are prescribed by federal agencies in Canada and around the world for animal testing, for pesticides, drugs, and other products. So that's business as usual.
W5 asked ITR Canada for an on-camera interview to talk about the undercover video. They declined, offering this statement instead. ITR operates in compliance with industry standards and federal and provincial guidelines for animal care in a laboratory testing environment. ITR has zero tolerance for the mistreatment of any animals under our care and maintains procedures to ensure staff may report and discuss concerns openly. Anonymous reporting of concerns or whistleblowing is also facilitated and encouraged. But W5 had more questions about the care of the animals at ITR and some of the incidents the video shows. So when ITR's Senior Vice President, Jeanette Bain, arrived for work, we were waiting for her. Jeanette Bain? Hi, Kevin Newman from CTV's W5. We've seen evidence of some of your technicians hitting dogs more than a dozen times. Is that acceptable in your facility?
Absolutely not. It's not unacceptable. It's not part of our standard. This is not our procedures. I'm very concerned, I'm very troubled if you have seen conditions like this within our facility.
Would you like to see that evidence, and what would you do with that technician?
Well, we will take the measures necessary, and I can tell you that I am convinced that does not happen. Our business is saving lives, okay? We are committed to find treatment to save a very wide varieties of ailments like cancer or Alzheimer's or diabetes. That's what we do.
In spite of repeated offers from W5 to Bain for a screening of the undercover video, she never did view the footage, saying she'll let the Canadian Council on Animal Care decide if there are any problems.
If we compare Canada to the European Union, which for 30 years has had legislation that says you may not conduct an animal experiment if an alternative exists, you compare that to Canada, where we have no federal legislation at all impacting animals in laboratories, it's a joke.
The world leader is here in the Netherlands, where the federal government has heard the voices of these protesters. They're outside Europe's biggest primate testing lab, where hundreds of monkeys live and die in the name of science. The Dutch government is now moving to phase out primate testing while it funds the search for alternatives. Its goal is to eliminate all animal testing by the year 2025. Meanwhile, Canada is one of the remaining countries that still allows animal testing for cosmetics. 36 other countries, including the entire EU, have already banned any cosmetics testing on animals. A bill to ban those products has been making its way through the Canadian Senate for more than a year.
This is something where our leading trading partners have already done this, and it's time for Canada to play catch up.
But it's too late for most of these animals. Most, if not all, will be euthanized, usually 6 to 12 months after they've arrived. There's no retirement, no relief from the suffering, no hope for a better life.
Somebody has to stand up for them, and I'm not going to let them down.